Hi. How is everyone? Hi, my name is Isabella. I'm part of the Cause Youth Development Program here at the Center for Aquatic Sciences. And I get the chance for me working here, I get the chance to learn about marine and environmental sciences, which is actually really cool and actually really fun to do. I also not only get to learn about them, but I also get to teach it back to my community, which is something I like to do and is something I am actually doing today. So I get to teach it back to you guys and to my community with live animals as we see here and interactive activities. So happy World's Ocean Day, guys, everyone. So today I'm actually going to be teaching you about moon jellies and talking to you guys about this. So thanks to Jack. Yes, Jack over here holding the camera. Yes, say hi, Jack. so, so moon jellies, as you can see from Jack's perspective here of the moon jelly, it's very small and as we like to call it or describe it, it's a floating jelly because of its size and its shape. It's very round. It's like a bell shape as also, and it has small little tentacles. I don't know if you can see, but they are moving around there. Yes. And yeah, I don't know if you can see too well, but they're there. They're small, they're tiny, they're so cute though. So, moon jellies are actually made up of 90% of water, which if you look at it, it kind of does look like it's made of 90% of water. But also, moon jellies are found near the surface of shallow bays and harbors. They're also found in temperate and tropical oceans, which is really cool. So about moon jellies, let's see here. Well, they are very okay. As you can see, they're very small, and you might not think they're too harmful, maybe to us, but to other animals in the ocean, they are. So let me talk about that real quick. So their defense is actually on their tentacles. So on their tentacles, you can see, well, you can't really see it, but there are these things called stinging cells. And these stinging cells are actually called they're called cnidocytes. So inside of the cnidocytes is called a nematocyte. Don't get them confused, but yes, inside. And we like to describe that as a thread in a, a thread with a barb. So when this is fired, pretty much what happens is it'll go into the animal's tissue and release a toxin to them. And that's how they use their defense. But not only do they use it for defense, they also use this for feeding. So moon jellies actually like to eat fish, some small invertebrates, and other food particles. But moon jellies mostly swim with the current, so they don't necessarily have most places to go. They kind of just go with the flow, as you might call it. And it's actually, they don't like, they're not, I don't think they're strong enough to go against the current, but whatever they can pick up while they're moving is how they eat. So, which I found actually really cool. So, another thing is I might want to actually mention is about how not only they can defend themselves, but there there's a threat to them as also. So jellies tend to be around areas that are affected by humans already and like their activities. So like overfishing and like over like ocean warming and like the pollution is what reduces um the fish they eat are actually very small because they're I don't know exactly how small, but they must be really small because as you see from this one video of Jack holding, it's a small jellyfish. So these jellies don't eat big fish in general. Yeah, see, comparison. As I was saying, but that's a good question actually. They do eat very small fish. Um, jellies in areas they tend to thrive in human activity areas, so like where they fish and everything. So what happens is all the predators that eat these jellies usually aren't there because they're being polluted and they are eaten because of humans. So then that leaves the moon jellies to over populize the area in general. So that might get out of hand. So what happens is because of that, um, moon jellies can like how do I describe this? Because of the population being so high, what happens is the predators that do eat them, because they're made of 90% of water, they actually need to eat more of them in order to actually, like be full because they are small and they're made of 90% water. So eating water, I don't think really fills you up too much. So which makes sense. So that's actually what keeps their population balanced, as you might say. So, but yeah.
So Isabella, I can answer the question that was just asked about the orange stuff. That is the food that they ate today. That's breakfast. These
Oh,
jellies eat, like you said, very small things. And for us here, they get fed essentially plankton. They get fed little tiny brine shrimp or sea monkeys, we call them. But they're baby sea monkeys. They're super, super tiny. And all that orange stuff there is their stomach pouches, and that's where their breakfast is.
question answered. Thank you, Jack.
Happy to help.
How many stomachs do they have? Good question. Jack?
So they have, you can see 4 stomach pouches. I can't speak for all jellyfish, but I know moon jellies, it's really easy to see. They have
Yeah.
4 stomach pouches. And this one had a really nice breakfast.
He must be full then.
I'm gonna think of it. I think I skipped my breakfast today, so I'm getting hungry.
How big is the biggest moon jelly you've ever seen? Hmm. I
Well,
don't
the
really see moon jellies, so
moon jellies don't get really, really big, mostly because they're kind of delicate. I mean, some jellyfish, some jellies are tougher than others, and moon jellies are not. They're very thin. Like you said, they're almost all water. They're very tiny, and as they get bigger, they have a harder time making it through waves and currents, and even the slightest little ripple can really hurt them. So probably
yeah.
the biggest one I've ever seen is probably about as big as this bowl is. There's my hand. So that's probably the biggest one I've ever seen, and that's really unusual. This is probably a teenager size. They can get probably commonly twice as big or a third as big as this.
Yeah.
If you
Yeah,
want.
the jellies I've seen, I don't think they have been very big. That's actually a really big jelly. Are there any other jellies that look similar to a moon jelly?
There, there are other jellies, and off our coast in New Jersey, there's something called a many-ribbed jelly, which is clear and flat and a little bit more rigid. And sometimes you find them on the beach after they've died and they get tossed around in the waves a little bit. Since
Aw.
they're a little bit tougher body, parts of their body remains, and it looks like a clear, hard, rubbery disc.
Ooh.
And you can find them on the beach sometimes, and they can't hurt you. This jelly just gets torn up too much in the waves after they die, so you don't really find much of them.
Yeah. Question. Why do some people call jellies jellyfish? Well, jellyfish aren't necessarily fish at all. They usually tend to call it because most people just think anything in the ocean's a fish, and that's not necessarily true because fish have certain characteristics just like any other animal. So fish usually have scales and gills. As you see here, jellies don't actually have any of those traits, so they're not necessarily supposed to be called jellyfish because they're not fish. What should we call them? You should call them jellies instead. Or by their actual name, like a moon jelly, but you're welcome. I see two types of tentacles. What's the difference? Well, I think question for Jack.
So, like Isabella said, all the tentacles with the stinging cells, the ouchy parts, are all around the edge of the what we call the bell, and they're the really tiny things, and they don't look particularly scary to us. But if you're a tiny plankton, they're terrifying. The big arms that you can see through the jelly are the oral arms. Those are how the jellies actually get their food up towards their stomach pouch. So that's how they digest a little bit. They hang underneath below. So it's kind of hard to see in this particular animal. But they look, let me see if I go. I don't know if you can see it there.
Bonus question. Are they considered plankton? Are jellies considered plankton? Oh, good question. I mean, they might only because I don't know scientifically, like, are they considered plankton? Jack.
So that's a good question, depending on who you talk to. Plankton are animals that can't really swim against a current.
Yeah.
And you can see our jelly is really swimming, but there isn't really a current right now. It's in a still bowl. So they couldn't go swim across a really big or even a mild current, but they can move depending if there's not a lot of water moving around. So it really
Right.
depends on the scientist you're talking to and the conditions the jelly's in.
Yeah.
I would say it's more nekton, or it's more free swimming. It can move around rather than being totally dependent on the currents.
Right. So they're similar to it, would you say?
I'm sorry?
You would say they're similar?
They're not very strong free swimmers, but they can move on their own, which would mean they're not necessarily plankton, at least from my point of view.
Okay. Okay. There we go. Question answered. So thanks you guys. Thanks everyone for watching. Sorry. Thanks for everyone for watching. I'm Isabella and that was Jack holding the camera with the jelly. Thank you guys so much. And come back at 2 p.m. for tomorrow for a guest speaker talk with today. Come back at 2 p.m. today here on YouTube with Judith Painter for a guest speaker talk. she will be talking about Antarctica. Ooh, that sounds fun. I like Antarctica. It's cold. So thanks everyone again. Bye.